Organization of the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system, or ANS, is defined primarily as a set of motor pathways to regulate visceral activity. The ANS responds to unconsciously perceived visceral sensations. The autonomic control centers then send action potentials down motor pathways or excite ANS effectors. Let's explore each one of these. Control centers. The main ANS control centers are the hypothalamus and brainstem. The autonomic reflexes that control urination and defecation are located in the spinal cord. Motor pathways. The autonomic nervous system ANS motor pathway has two neurons: a myelinated preganglionic neuron and an unmyelinated postganglionic neuron. The autonomic ganglia are clusters of cell bodies of the postganglionic neurons that synapse with preganglionic neurons. In contrast, motor pathways in the somatic nervous system have only one very long myelinated neuron that synapses directly on the somatic effector, such as skeletal muscle. Neurotransmitters. Cholinergic neurons release acetylcholine, which binds to either nicotinic or muscarinic acetylcholine receptors. Nicotinic acetylcholine receptors mediate fast synaptic transmission. When acetylcholine binds to them, they open ion channels, allowing ions like sodium and calcium to flow through the channels, leading to basically depolarization. These are typically found in neuromuscular junctions of the skeletal muscles, also in autonomic ganglia, both in sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, and in the central nervous system. Muscarinic acetylcholine receptors. These receptors work more slowly than nicotinic ones and are involved in various cellular signaling pathways. They affect processes like heart rate, smooth muscle contraction, and glandular secretion. Muscarinic acetylcholine receptors are predominantly found in the parasympathetic nervous system, which are associated with the work of heart, lungs, and gastrointestinal system. Then we also have adrenergic receptors. Adrenergic neurons release norepinephrine or adrenaline, which binds to adrenergic receptors. Not shown here though, there are two subtypes of adrenergic receptors, alpha and beta. Alpha is involved in vasoconstriction and smooth muscle contraction, while beta adrenergic receptors are pretty much involved in increasing heart activity and relaxing smooth muscles. In general, neurotransmitters activate receptors in the postganglionic neurons, exciting or inhibiting nerve impulses that affect the function of effector cells. Finally, let's take a look at the visceral receptors. Sensory information to the ANS comes from somatic and spatial receptors throughout the cranial or spinal nerves. Input to ANS is generally not consciously perceived. There are several types of visceral receptors, and here are three main categories. Chemoreceptors, which may be located in places such as carotid arteries and hypothalamus. They are involved in sensing changes in blood carbon dioxide and oxygen levels, blood pH levels, blood osmotic pressure, and blood glucose levels. Temperature receptors that may be found in the central nervous system, and mechanoreceptors that are involved in sensing changes in the digestive movements, urinary movements, reproductive movements, and movements in respiratory tract.